Hi, it's Wyndham and welcome to the second video in this awareness series. Let's talk about blueprints. In the last video, we spoke about the original blueprint and the blueprint in general and the fact that it automates our reactions to stimulus. It is primarily focused on our survival, doesn't care whether we're thriving in life, it just wants to make sure we're surviving. The fact that survival as human beings requires acceptance within a group, and acceptance in a group requires us to adjust our behaviour to the inclusion criteria of that group. And then the fact that our blueprints are studied throughout with stabilising beliefs and our perception of truths, which enable some predictability and certainty of how we view the world and how we view ourselves, and they're linked to the automated reactions. So those are the four key areas we covered in the last video. In this video, I want to bring us up to date to our modern blueprint and the fact that there are three phases to it. So we'll dive straight in. Phase one, the most important, fundamentally shapes the whole of our life. And phase one of our blueprint runs from the day we are born to the day we take over agency of our life. Now that might be when we leave home, it could be when we move into the world of work, it might be when we leave home to go to university, whatever it might be, but it is that point where we move from childhood to adulthood. So how is it created? Well, in this phase one, there are three main influencers and creators of our blueprint. It is the primary family or caregiving unit, it is our education, and it is any other significant group. For example, it could be religion. My parents are religious. I grew up going to church. That is a key area of influence to my blueprint. So let's think about what our blueprint is drawing from. We have to be accepted to survive. We are hardwired to do so, right? We as a species are not very good young. We take a lot of investment to get us to self-sufficiency. So as children, our survival truly fundamentally depends on being accepted in the groups we are part of. So our family unit, our school, our education, and these other big groups. So we have to start looking at what were the inclusion criteria for those groups as we were growing up. You know, if we look at our primary caregiving unit, whether that's family or, grandparents, whether it's adoption, whether it's foster care, whatever it might be, that unit, the behaviours required of us to be included fundamentally impact the beliefs that stud our blueprint, the truths we see, and how those things stabilise our view of the world and our view of ourselves. So things like, how was our emotional response met? If I am belittled for being an emotional child, how do I react to that? How does my safety, my survival, adjust my behaviour because I need to be included in that group? I have no choice. I have no awareness this is what's going on. I just have to develop mechanisms that keep me included, that keep me accepted. How am I praised? Am I praised? How, if I try my best, am I rewarded for that? Or am I rewarded for winning? All of these things start shaping how we view the world and how we view ourselves. What expectations were placed on me academically? What were the expectations of how I were to behave within the house? What was my role? What was my function within that unit? What were the limits that were placed on me at that time? All of those things filter down to how we view the world. If there is consistency in those messages, there is predictability and certainty in the belief and the truth that I generate that then studs my blueprint. And the beliefs and the truths are what is triggering the automatic reaction to stimulus. So we have the family unit that is setting those inclusion criteria. When we go to school, there are a whole new range of inclusion criteria, because not only do we have to interact with the teachers, we have to interact with a whole load of kids that we don't know. And they are all reacting automatically based on the beliefs and truths that are studying through their blueprints. And those are then influencing me and how I have to behave to meet the inclusion criteria of these new groups. And the fundamentally important thing here is we have no choice. We have no choice. And we're not aware that this is what is happening. And I would put almost every penny I have on the fact that the adults, the people who are shaping those behaviours, who are setting the inclusion criteria, have no idea this is what's going on either. So we end up with a blueprint studded with beliefs based on all of these influences, all of the messages we hear consistently, all of the things we see, the people in our lives, the people setting the inclusion criteria. We see what they do and we hear what they say. And when there is a disconnect between those two things, that comes into our blueprint as well. It manifests it drops into the bedrock from which our automatic reactions are triggered. So give yourself a moment, think back. What was expected of you in your formative years, at home, at school? What were you told about yourself at home, at school, in any other significant group? Because those things, at a time when you had no choice and you had no awareness of what was happening, are fundamental blocks of belief and truth in your blueprint. Like I said in the last video, belief and truth has no real interest in whether it is true or not. It is just there to add stability, predictability, certainty in a chaotic world. And if we can be certain, then we can deal with that. So that is phase one. And that runs up to the point we take agency, independence in our life. Phase two carries all of that through, all of that forward. But now we have some choice in our life, right? But phase two, then we still have to be part of groups. We are still conditioned and trained into acceptance. We still need to be part of groups. It's just the groups are beginning to change. We may be spending less time with our family, more time with our friends. But what are the inclusion criteria for our friendship groups? Because there will be some. And how many of those inclusion criteria require us to adjust ourselves slightly from who we really think we are? We go into the world of work. What are the inclusion criteria in work? What are the expectations of us? What constitutes success and failure? How am I rewarded and praised? All of these things start to adjust our behaviours because we're hardwired to seek acceptance into groups. Maybe we're whatever those significant other groups. What hobbies do we have? What things do we enjoy doing? What are the inclusion criteria of those groups? Because they are shaping our behaviour. They are shaping our beliefs. They are shaping our truths. And those beliefs and truths are triggering our automatic reaction to stimulus. So if we have spent our whole life adjusting and just being as malleable as possible to other people because we fear rejection, that is going to be carried forward into our life until we do something about it. So phase 1, essentially our childhood. Phase 2, when we become an adult and we step into our grown-up world. Phase 3 is from the point we decide we are going to write our own blueprint. And the process for doing that is figuring out which of those inclusion criteria we have adjusted to that have created a belief, that have created a truth that triggers our automatic, that no longer serves us. Can we identify what they are? 6 essential elements. Can we bring our awareness? Can we accept what is and then build some intentional action to create something new? I said earlier that one of the big challenges here is we have no choice around our phase 1 blueprint. And actually, even in our phase 2, when we have a choice, we probably don't have awareness. We are not clear on what is actually happening. That is the purpose of this video series. So if we have no choice and we have no awareness, how can we blame ourselves? There can be no blame. There just is what is. Can we bring our awareness? Can we accept? Can we then plan our intentional action to create the life we do really want? Can we seek out those groups in phase 3 where the inclusion criteria are be yourself? Can we find those pockets of meaning and fulfillment that actually require us to let go of the armor, to let go of the pain and the suffering we've been through because of these inclusion criteria? I leave you with that for today. Reflect on it. Think about how your life has been shaped by the inclusion criteria of every group you've ever been part of. And ask yourself how much of that is no longer serving you. I think in the next one I'm going to talk about resistance and how resistance is hardwired into our blueprints, and our resistance fundamentally is caused by our beliefs and our truths, which, as we've already discussed, are not interested in objectively being true. Anyway, I leave you with that. I wish you a peaceful and joyful few days, and I will speak to you soon.